Dawid Malan celebrates his century on day 3. Dawid Malan followed Mark Stoneman to three figures as England racked up 515 against the cricket. Australia 11. Cricket Australia 11 v England 11. Townsville. Day 3. Close. Cricket Australia 11 trail England 11 by 144 runs with 7 innings wickets in hand. Cricket Australia 11 first innings 250, short 51, Wokes 6-54, Overton 2-32, Broad 2-33. England 11 first innings 515, Stoneman 111, Malan 109, Root 83, Cook 70, short 4-103, Myelenko 2-86. Cricket Australia 11 second innings 121-3, Gibson 49, Carter 34, Alley 2-34, Crane 1-28. Day 3 report England encountered bumps on the road but are still bang on course for a resounding win over a Cricket Australia 11 after Dawid Malan's 100 in their final Ashes warm-up match. Malan, 109, 12 over 1 to be England's leading run scorer in the Test series, became the second centurion of this tour, sharing a fourth wicket stand of 163 with Joe Root, 83, in a first innings which realised 515 all-out despite one of England's trademark collapses at the Tony Ireland Stadium. Then, with a mammoth lead of 265 in the bank, their seamers drew a blank as the hosts, even with usual opener Nick Larkin out of this match, after breaking his finger in the field, put on a seamless 80 for none on the way to a more fragile 121 for 3 by stumps on day 3. Larkin's replacement Ryan Gibson did most to hinder England's progress, falling just a run short of his second first-class 50, when he was Moeen Ali's second victim bowled sweeping. It will probably prove of limited significance, save for as a continuation of bad habits, that England earlier frittered away 5 wickets for 38 runs as Matt Short, 4 for 103, multiplied by 5 his career tally of first-class wickets and more than halved his previous average of 91. 3 fell for just a single either side of lunch, including an inconvenient failure for Moeen in what seems sure to be his only innings before the first Test, before Chris Wokes put things right again by engineering a last wicket stand of 58 with gritty number 11 Mason Crane, on a day marked elsewhere by the sound and fury surrounding Australia's curious squad selection. For the first 2 tests, England had the chance to quietly go about their business. They would have preferred to see Root head to Brisbane next week with 100 under his belt, but instead he got an edge down the leg side off seamer Simon Myelenko and fell to a very good diving catch by young wicketkeeper Harry Nielsen. Johnny Bairstow is another batsman saving some runs for the Tests, 5th out and the first to go 4 under 20 after spearing a low full toss to mid-on off leg spinner Daniel Fallons, 3 for 127. Malan made no mistake as he posted England's second century in consecutive days, reaching his milestone from 192 balls. He hit 9 fours in a chanceless 100, his first in England colours, characterised by unflustered shot selection and some pretty driving off both pace and spin. Malan still looked a little peeved to be run out when Moeen called him for the single, after his inside edge into the leg side off Fallons, and Jay Carter's direct hit found him short of his ground. Moeen was bowled through the gate by Short just before lunch, and the off-spinner was on a hat-trick when Craig Overton pushed the first ball of the afternoon straight to short leg to add a golden duck here to his 2 knots in Adelaide last week. Stuart Broad was caught off a mid-sweep at short, but Wokes and Crane then dug in. Carter and Gibson then made a fine start in reply until the left-hander edged an attempted drive at Moeen to slip in after Will Pucovski went the same way to Crane. The hosts had lost 2 wickets stuck on their bogey number 87. Day 3 reaction. Paul Farbrace on England's day. If we're honest, it was a bit of a mixed day. We feel we'd had 2 really good previous days, and perhaps, on Friday, we just slipped a fraction from the standards we would have expected. We've got ourselves in a good position in the game, but in terms of going into next week's match, perhaps we've not quite been as good as we could have been. It's probably quite a good timely reminder, with the test starting next week, that we've got to be fully focused every day and every session, on our game all the time. On Centurions Stoneman and Malan, I think both have shown right from the start that they've adapted to conditions and are quite well suited to them. Malan found England a little bit of a struggle last summer, ball nipping around a little bit, but here, with the ball bouncing and coming onto the bat, he looks very much at home. Day 2 report. Mark Stoneman celebrates his century. Mark Stoneman took his cue from coach Trevor Bayliss to post the first century of England's Ashes tour, on a second day of 4 against a Cricket Australia 11, which also featured a return to form for Alistair Cook, 70, before next week's first test in Brisbane. Stoneman's 111 underpinned England's 337 for 3 in reply to 250 all out. He was answering the call from Bayliss after England's preceding fixture against the same opponents in Adelaide last week. 4 160s, not 60s, on this tour. Stoneman, who is 11 halves with Sky Bet to be England's top run scorer in the Ashes series, fell almost exactly between those two figures when he was caught and bowled by leg spinner Daniel Fallons. But England were doubtless grateful and reassured nonetheless after he shared an opening stand of 172 with Cook and then consolidated his 3 successive 50s already on his maiden Ashes tour by moving to 3 figures from 140 balls. Video element not supported. Paul Collingwood's Ashes diary. Captain Joe Root, 62 no, and Dawid Malan, 57 no, then ruled the evening session at the Tony Ireland Stadium, respectively, with their second and third 50s of the tour in an unbroken century partnership as England took advantage of benign conditions and an inexperienced attack. Cook was always following Stoneman at a respectful distance as he made his first half-century in almost 3 months, after CA11 added just 1 run for their final wicket. Stuart Broad bouncing out number 11 Harry Conway in the second over of the morning. Cook made a watchful but convincing start. He took 11 balls to get off the mark, with the 2 pushed past cover off Gurinder Sandhu, and counted 2 boundaries in the same over, the first off his hip before an on-drive. Stoneman then took over, while Cook was stuck on 10 for a further 24 deliveries. And it was the junior partner who kept England ticking it near 4 on over. There was risk involved, though, and on 41, Stoneman was dropped at gully by Nick Larkin as he climbed into his favourite cut shot. Again off first change Simon Milenko. Larkin suffered a broken finger and the opener is not expected to be able to bat in CA's second innings. Cook played barely a false shot, and began milking percentage runs from the spinners and driving well against pace, with just 1 minor moment of fortune on 40, when Sandhu was unable to take a tough return chance low in his follow-through. There was to be no century for Cook, though, because it was he rather than Stoneman who fell cutting when he edged off spinner Matt Short behind. James Vince accompanied Stoneman to 3 figures only for the number 3 to depart, after a long conference between the 2 umpires, to a mildly controversial bat-pad catch to short leg off Fallons. Stoneman then went in the first over after tea, but Root and Malan cashed in against the old ball on a slow pitch. They totaled just 6 boundaries between them in their 50s but did the necessary to boost individual and collective confidence as England moved into a commanding first innings lead and no batsman made fewer than Vince's 26. Day 2 reaction. Mark Stoneman on his form ahead of the first test next week. It feels like my game is in good order. But it's going to be tested a hell of a lot more come next week. That's for sure. There's no doubts about that. And everyone is aware of it. Obviously, there's going to be more pace and bounce in the attack in the pitch at Brisbane. Day 1 report. Chris Woakes continued his heartening form with 6 more wickets on Day 1 of England's final Ashes warm-up match. Woakes did most to restrict cricket Australia 11 to 249 for 9. Despite a hard-working half-century from home captain Matt Short, Chris Woakes claimed 6 wickets.